Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Ernie.
and this is Budget Nerds.
What was all in your mind?
You are not alone.
No, you are not. All right, Ernie, today we're going to do a grab bag, a collection of randomness today, right? We're doing a Ask the Budget Nerds episode because we get a lot of emails with some of them really complex questions and some of them really simple, but I think they're all really helpful for people to hear about. So we're going to take a few of those and talk about them today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another fun episode because we're talking about some topics that they come up enough, but we've never done like a full out video on them.
Right.
So we're just going to compile them all into one.
Some of these are like, we look at them, we're like, oh, I'd really like to talk about that, but like it couldn't be a full episode now, especially now that we talked for like 2 hours. But if you put them together, it kind of makes something good. So I think that'll be good. So the first topic we have is about the Matchy game that we talk about a lot. What do you think? What do you want to do, Ernie? You want to just read it?
Yeah, I'll read the email from Kendall.
Okay.
Right now I have a category that is also emergency fund and exactly matches the account that I have for my emergency fund. So definitely the match game there, but I don't understand why you guys say that it is so bad. So here we have a scenario where there is an account, emergency account. There's an amount of money in that account. And then there's an emergency fund category. And the amount of money in that category exactly to the penny matches the amount of money in the account. We call this the matchy game, when you match account balances to category balances. And why do we hate this, Ben?
Okay, it's not that it's like bad, Kendall. Like, I don't want you to feel like you're bad. It's just you don't need to do it. Like it's not necessary. YNAB can free you of this game that is just not really adding anything to your life. I mean, okay, maybe you do feel like it adds something. Maybe it gives you some peace of mind for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of like all what you've always done and like gives you some comfort, but you don't need to do it because YNAB is keeping track of the purpose of your dollars. So you don't need to also keep track of your purpose of your dollars using accounts. It's kind of just like double work when you really don't need it.
Yeah, it is double work. And in a sense, I get it.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at this amount of money in the account, and we're so used to saving in accounts. Right. And so just looking at that amount at the bank makes us feel secure. And then if we go to our categories and it's scattered across all these different categories, it can almost feel like, oh, we're going to end up spending that money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's okay if that money gets spent.
Right.
Because the categories, you're just constantly reprioritizing what you want your money to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that do this do it to kind of protect money from themselves, because before you had YNAB, all you really have is the account balances, right? And so if you want to do some mental accounting, you have to use accounts to do it. And it can be helpful if you don't have a framework for determining the purpose of your money. I mean, there's so many people I've talked to people that had like 30 savings accounts, right? And they were YNABing, but they were doing it with accounts and all these transfers and they had this whole crazy system where their paycheck was split up like 25 ways, you know. And you don't really need to do that, because once you have YNAB, you can keep track of the purpose of your money. And a lot of people do this, I think, to kind of hide money from themselves. They are worried that they're going to spend it. But so long as you use YNAB and you actually check your categories before you spend, YNAB's going to protect that money, and you don't need to have the accounts protecting the money, you know?
Yeah, for me, the only job of the accounts, well, there's two of them. Mm-hmm. Is to tell me where my money's located.
Right.
Like, where am I physically keeping these dollars? And so I have a checking and I have two savings, and one checking is just my local checking account at the credit union. Not a whole lot there, but then I have a high yield savings account. So, you know, I try to keep as much there. And that's the other point, is to optimize where my dollars are based on interest rates.
Yeah.
So I'm making decisions just on those two criteria.
Exactly.
Optimization and location. I don't even consider what any of that money is for. And so maybe if people could just reframe it, like, what is the actual purpose of the bank account? It might free them up into just, not playing that matchy game anymore.
Yeah. The only reason why I would have a separate account, like, it has to have a practical purpose. Like, I have a checking account, I have a savings account, and the savings account is to park money that I don't need right away to get some interest. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I'd have it all in one account, right? There's also like a security thing. Like, if somebody got into the checking account, they couldn't take all my money, if it was all sitting in one account. So there's that. Or it's like a super practical one. Like, I have another checking account because my main checking account's at an online bank, but I like to keep cash. We talked about this. I like to keep like cash in like small bills. So I have it for my poker nights. So I have it because we pay a babysitter who's like a teenager. So like I have to pay her in cash, things like that. Right. And so it's just nice to have that in the house. But because my checking account's at an online bank, I can't like go to a teller and say, hey, give me 10 fives and 5 20s and all that. So I literally keep a checking account at Bank of America at a local branch in town just for that purpose. And it's like, it annoys me so much because I'd rather not. But anyways, the accounts are for practical accounting reasons. They're not for doing what YNAB does, which is keeping track of the purpose of your dollars. So I think if you can let it go, you'll find that it's really freeing. You're going to spend less time on bookkeeping and also like it gets off sometimes just because of like, I don't know why, like little things, like there was a transfer that you didn't, because like you make a transfer, then you have to like go to YNAB and make the transfer as well. So you make the transfer in the account, then you got to make the transfer in the categories, and it's like you have to double everything, and so you inevitably forget, and it gets off, and it's like, oh, it's so frustrating. I think for Kendall, if it's just an emergency fund and it's like barely ever moving, it's not so bad. Like, it's a little easier to handle. But for folks that are like, okay, I have this savings account for my vacation and this savings account for my car repairs, it gets a little bit tricky. And then people look at YNAB and they feel like something's wrong because those don't match. But there's no actual connection between the accounts, right? So
what I would say is just try it. Go into YNAB. Don't do any real transfers in the real world, and just transfer from all those unique individual savings accounts, transfer them to your main savings.
Yeah.
Again, just make the transfer in YNAB and then go back and forth between that account and your categories, and see how that feels. And you'll realize, I think, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and it's really free. Now, if you want to keep doing it, it's fine. We're not going to get mad at you, okay? Like, it's okay. I just want you to be free, from the bookkeeping and all the silly nonsense. But anyways, it's fine if you want to. All right, let's go to the next one here. What do we got? Jody wrote in an email and asked about how do you budget for kids over time, because they seem to be getting older and changing. Today, as we're recording this, is my oldest daughter's 10th birthday. So I'm like in it right now, right? It's just changing a lot, man. It's crazy. Things are changing right now. So yeah, I think we're in a perfect position here because I got little kids, and Ernie, you got older kids. So you have the sage advice for me. So I think we can run the gambit here. So let me read Jody's email. This is just part of the email that Jody sent. If you want an episode idea, you might consider budgeting for kids and how it changes over time. Diapers to summer camps to college savings to ER visits. Oh, this is so funny because those 4 things I'm dealing with right now. Like yesterday, I started a category for next year's summer camps because this year we like went hard into summer camps. I have diapers going on. We were talking about we need to increase college savings, and my daughter Flora just went to the ER. So she's fine, by the way. But all of that I'm so in it right now. It's so true. Anyways, how do we do this? How do you change along with them as you go, right?
Yeah. Well, I started as simple as possible.
Okay.
And then I just let complexity earn its place. So early on when the boys were really young, elementary school, they had two savings accounts, which was really annoying. They had like a junior savings program,
Okay.
which was a higher interest rate, and it was at a completely different bank too. But the purpose of this was to, help you save for college, and you couldn't touch the money until you're 18. So we had that, and I didn't even put that in YNAB. Like, well, they can't touch it now.
It's already got a purpose too. It's for college, right?
I'm not going to waste my time tracking it, so I don't care. And then their actual savings account, we had put like birthday money in there and, Christmas money and stuff like that. But then, starting YNAB, I realized, well, we have to bring in their accounts. So that's 3 boys, 3 different accounts. And then I have to play the matchy game.
No.
And I'm just like, no, this is just, it's too much administration, especially when I would buy something on Amazon for them with my credit card. And then they would pay me back with cash, or I would have to go onto their account, transfer it to my account. And it's just like all these moving pieces. And I'm like, enough. And so I transferred all of their money into me and Christy's account.
Okay.
And then I just assigned, they each had their own category.
Okay.
So then they could freely spend from their category, and we could spend it anyway.
And to them,
cash,
they don't
credit
care
card.
They
don't care.
They check their bank balance or they check a category balance.
And that's the thing. Right? They got in the habit of, Dad, how much do I have in my category?
Yeah.
And then really that's what I wanted to instill of this, hey, know where you stand before you spend the money, and then you make a decision based on reality.
Yeah.
And so we did it that way for a really long period of time.
That's really interesting because I'm in that too. I actually just wrote a blog about this coming out sometime. I probably like a month from now. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I got a blog about allowances and how I've been handling allowances and like practically, like, do I put it in a cash envelope? And I just brought them into YNAB. I have like a category group for my 2 older kids. My 2 younger kids are too young for it right now. Although Josie is pushing for it. She's 5. I feel like she might want it. It's funny because like I'm like, I feel like the older kids, like, you wait so long to do something and then you have to do it for the younger kids. But anyway,
yeah,
they have category groups, and the money sits in my accounts. Like, they don't have a separate account. My oldest is only 10, right? But the fact that they have to come to me to check what their balance is in their spending category or whatever they're saving for is really powerful, because before I had them put money in little cash envelopes that they kept track of, and I would give them cash and then they'd have to divvy it up. And that was good because I think it kind of introduced them to concepts really well, especially when they're younger. But it was all like over there. It was like happening somewhere else. So like we didn't have a lot of conversations, but now they come to me and they're like, hey, I want to go buy some nonsense at the dollar store because my... I have beef with this. I probably should. It's funny. I've like talked about it on Budget Nerds. Probably should talk to my mom, but like she takes them to the dollar store and gets them little cheap toys, and then they break 30 minutes later, literally, because they're nonsense. And then I deal with the tears. So she gets the fun and I deal with the tears. But I guess that's
the tears and the clutter of the house. Because no one throws that stuff out.
I mean, I guess that's her prerogative as their Grammy, right? That she gets to spoil them a little bit. But anyways, but sometimes they'll buy their own thing. And so like they'll come to me and they'll be like, oh, I want some money for this. Like, how much do I have? And I'll look at it and be like, oh, well, you have, you only have, or you have nothing in your spending category. And they're like, oh, maybe I should move some money from my new Heelys category. Teddy's saving up for Heelys, right? And I'm like, well, you sure you want to do that? Because then you only have this much. We have conversations like that instead of them just doing it. So anyways, long-winded way to say allowances. I think if you can do something, have a system where like it facilitates more conversations, that's better.
And I think... Well, I guess I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but there were times I was like, do we need a category group for each kid? Because there were times where they were thinking about multiple things. I'm like, well, you can actually have both, and let's take what you have and separate it out across these various priorities. But they never wanted to do that. It's like
they're not inclined towards saving your kids.
So I don't know. I brought it up, but it didn't gain any traction. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to force it. So just, okay, keep a category and you just blow it all on this one thing and don't even think about how you're going to get it, that other thing that you wanted. I guess we'll figure that out later on.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Every kid's gonna be different, you know. So, because like, yeah, I got one kid that's such a spender, and another kid that is saving for like three
Yeah.
different things, you know. So, but what
Well,
about like categories? Like what like things for them? Should we talk about that a little bit and how that changes over time?
I guess you can talk about it because we kept ours so simple. Like we
Okay.
just had a category pretty much from the beginning just called boys.
Okay. Sure.
And that was stuff specific to them. So
Right.
like summer camps or boy, I can't even think of any other examples. But like things like clothing, that just came from the whole family clothing category.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't separate it out.
Okay. That's a good
Gifts,
approach.
things like that. We didn't separate it out.
Yeah. Okay.
So we
Okay.
just
Yeah.
all ran through one category because I don't know, it was simple and it worked. And I never felt like we need to break this out into more.
Well, it's funny you say that because, like, in my mind, I was like, oh, yeah, we just have the one category because we have a category called kids stuff, which is a catch all for their clothes and like activities and like random things like that. But I also have a lot more when I was going through my budget. So, yeah, if you don't mind, I think I'll just list them real quick and
Yeah.
I'll talk about how they've changed. Because literally last night we had a budget meeting and we made a lot of changes here too. So,
Oh,
even
nice.
these notes I have,
You actually
like,
made changes, huh?
yeah, because their kids are changing, so I have to. I
You're
don't make
forced
changes
into
until
it.
I have to. So, well, anyways, okay. So here's my current categories. We got babysitting, and these are all scattered all through the budget, so it's not like one group for them. Babysitting, which is different from. We also have a nanny. Well, we did until recently. So like I separate. I have like a nanny category and a babysitting because one's more like one has like tax implications and all that stuff. This is for like date nights or if we're doing something, right? So I got babysitting, diapers. I have a separate category for diapers because I don't know why. I probably could put it into kid stuff, but I think it's just like such a large single expense that I didn't want to mix it in with kid stuff.
But
Then
you're
we got
not
our
going
kids
to
stuff category.
limit spending on diapers, right?
No,
Like poop
no.
less? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
but I don't know.
It is getting less and less as my kids are getting out of pull-ups and all that. We're potty training my 2-year-old right now. It's going well? Question mark. It was going real bad for a while. It's like starting to. I think we've turned a corner, but they still need pull-ups at night and stuff like that. So we're still.
I think for those things where I know there's going to be no behavior change by
Yeah.
tracking and YNAB, I'm like, well, I don't need a category for it.
right, but the problem was like I didn't want to like artificially inflate the kids stuff category. And like look at it and be like, oh, we have all this money, and then not have money for diapers. You know,
Okay,
so like
that
that's-
makes sense. Yes.
I think that's why I separated it out because it's like a single expense that was so big. But I hear what you're saying. And then we have a restaurants family category, and I've talked about this before on Budget Nerds. I used to have one dining out category, and we started taking the kids out like once a week together. We're doing it less and less now for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe the past couple of years, I have a 2-year-old, so I feel like
it's crazy to go out.
it's like I don't want to inflict him on everybody, so we haven't done that as much as we did for a while. But yeah, that was eating up the whole dining out category, and we couldn't like go on dates without adding more money to it, you know. So we separated it out. I have a dining out dates and a dining out family category, and I kind of look at those as interchangeable, but I just want like visibility into like, you know, do we have enough? So might not do that forever. Then I have the allowances category, which I talked about, and I have groups for each of the kids, and there's like 2 or 3 categories in each of those. College funds. So we're putting money into college funds every year or every month, and it's not even close to enough. I am a little anxious about that. We gotta worry about that.
If you feel better, we did not save a penny for college, and our
Okay.
oldest starts college this fall,
Yeah, it's
and we're
gonna
just
be fine.
figuring it out.
Yeah, that's how I feel like it might be. I mean, even if we raise it, like I think I was doing calculations, and I'm like, I think like we can maybe afford to do like half of it, but like even that is such a stretch. It's crazy. Something's gonna have to change. I've been kind of just like hoping like the whole system's gonna change
Yeah,
before they
yeah.
go to college, but it doesn't seem like that's gonna happen. I was also hoping that self-driving cars would be completely ubiquitous before my daughter turns 16, and apparently that's not gonna happen. So Anyways, when she was born, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna have to teach her how to drive because everyone's gonna have a self-driving car by that point. And that was a little optimistic.
What's probably going to happen is your kids just won't be interested in driving. That's kind of the trend.
Is that how it is for
now.
you?
Yeah.
Really? Because you cart them around everywhere, I guess. So they're like, why should I
They're
drive?
content staying at home, chatting, over mics, playing video games with friends. I don't know. I remember I wanted my license the day I turned 16, but I think it's different now.
My birthday, I was there.
Yep.
Yep. Whatever. All right, we'll see. Okay. I have 3 new categories. Oh wait, I also have a kids entertainment category. That was specifically to give money to my nanny. We gave her like $100 in cash.
Okay.
And then she kept that in like our diaper bag, right? So she could like take them out to eat or take them to do something fun. And it's just like incidentals if she needed something. So we probably won't have that anymore because we don't have a nanny anymore. We just, our nanny left, took another job, and we were like, we're going to go to, all the kids are going to be in school or preschool next fall. So we're like holding on right now.
Whoa. New season.
This is what I'm talking about. Like my whole paradigm has changed massively. But we got rid of like the nanny payroll category. But in its place, I've added 3 categories.
Okay.
Kid camps, because that's how we dealt with not having a nanny. We have like them in every camp I can find in the whole world. Preschool, because we have to pay for preschool, obviously. And then mother's helper as like, so it's kind of like a nanny, but it's separate because we had like a teenager who lives in our neighborhood. She's just the sweetest. Comes and watches Gil, my youngest, and we pay her. So she's just watching them while we're working in here. Different from like an adult nanny.
Yep.
So yeah, and so we're gonna save for that all year. So next summer we're ready. So yeah, it's kind of funny because it reflects life. Like before, when the summer came around, like, well, we had our nanny, so it's like nothing really changes. And now when the summer comes around, it's like everything's insane. But we need, because we're kind of patchwork childcare.
Yeah.
So we need patchwork of categories for it. But yeah. So all that to say, first you got a little visibility into my situation. But yeah, it's just going to change. And I think what Ernie was right. Start simple. If you have an infant right now, just have a category for them, and don't just have one category for them. Like make it simple. As they get more complex, your budget can get more complex. Add more categories.
Yeah.
But always like make it earn its place. Like don't add complexity just to add complexity. Make it really earn its place, and I think that's okay.
And I get a sense that the frequency of spending from those categories for you is a lot higher than it was for me, because my boys were adopted and we only had one in diapers for just a little bit. So that was never really an expense.
Yeah, what were their ages again when you adopted them? I've asked you before.
4, 3, and 1.
4, 3, and 1. Yeah, so you didn't have the diapers too long.
Yeah, and we didn't do daycare. We just worked things out with our employers, and we had help from family members. Didn't have nannies, so there just wasn't a frequent spending for just a number of years. And so I felt that's why I could also run everything through one category, because I didn't need to quote unquote protect dollars, protect the diaper money.
Right.
Actually spend that on something else.
That's a super good point, because if you have maybe you have a partner and one of you stays home, watches the kids, well then that's a whole host of complexity in your budget that you don't need, because you don't need to pay preschool or nanny or daycare or mother's helper or camps, maybe, like that kind of thing. So it's going to depend on how complex your life is. And also as they get older, it'll get more complex, and just let it earn its keep, I think.
So
that applies for all sorts of things.
That setup where their money was in our accounts until they got a job. Because once they got a job, now they were getting a paycheck landing in their own checking account. So as soon as they got jobs, I opened a checking account for them.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense, because they're getting older now and they need to, I bet they're not going to be using your checking account forever, right?
So then I took them completely out of the budget. I'm like, your category deleted. See you later. And
I think that's right. Yeah.
And they started their own budget.
Okay.
But then I quickly realized, I actually need to add their category back into our personal budget because there are so many reimbursement situations where we end up paying for something. I log it through their personal category, and that's a reminder that they need to pay me back.
Okay. But it's just like a reimbursement thing.
And then, of course, you just can't have it the way you want. Our youngest didn't want his own checking account. He's like, no, Dad, I just want you to keep doing it for me. So now I had to bring his personal account into our budget, and I have to play the matchy game with a category. But then to make it even more complex, he has another spending category because he has a dog walking job. He gets paid cash from the neighbor.
Okay.
That money does not go into his account. That just gets logged in our cash account. And so I have to separate like the cash in his account from the cash in our account. So 2 categories, matchy. Yeah. That is annoying, but
we have this happy path. This is the deal though, guys. Like what we teach is a happy path. That's the term we use. It's literally the term we use internally. It's like, what's the happy path, right? Where it's like, ideally you won't do matchy, but then life happens and sometimes you have to. Yeah.
Right? And you realize what a pain it is.
Right. Man, come on. But that's the thing too. Like, we tend to think of it with kids like, okay, well, they are in this stage now, and then they're in this stage. But like, if you have multiple kids, I mean, Ernie's got 3 boys, I've got 4 kids. I mean, you're in all the stages all the time. Like, I am in like preteen stage and toddler stage at the same time, right? So my budget's going to reflect that, and that's just how it's going to be, and that's okay. So again, going back to let the complexity earn its place, and remember it's going to change all the time, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think the only other thing I'm going to say about this, unless you have some other thoughts, Ben, is this is just how naive I was or still am. Thinking about the costs of kids, I was like, kind of once they graduate and they kind of start getting on their own, it gets easy for parents. Oh my
That's what I thought.
goodness,
Is that not true?
It is so expensive. Like, maybe it's just our situation.
Of course it is. You got to set up like a new household.
I know.
For them.
I mean,
right?
It started with the senior
party. Right, because your oldest just graduated. Right?
So we went through that senior year of, senior pictures and the senior party and all the graduation stuff. I'm like, woo. And now we just got another vehicle because now we have 2 drivers. So they're going to have that vehicle. And so buying that, insuring that, and they're going to be responsible for some of the costs, but we're helping out, and that costs something.
It's not like that's the thing. It's not an easy cutoff. Like, it's not like, okay, you're at 2 now and it's all over, like I'm no longer helping you. Like it's messy. It's complicated.
And then there's going to be their first apartment and furnishing that. So like, I'm starting to now realize how many big expenses there are down the line. And so it's just like, okay, I got to start planning for this a lot more than what Christy and I have been doing.
Yeah, it's like a launch. Maybe you need like a launch category, to launch them into their new life. That's almost what it is.
Yeah,
really.
Seriously. Yeah. If I, going way back, younger Ernie 10 years ago, I would have told myself, don't worry about saving for college. Just save for like options post high school.
Oh no.
Don't limit Ernie just to college or
if
school.
If you're saying 10 years ago Ernie, that's me. I'm 10 years ago Ernie right now.
Ben, if I could grab your face right now, Ben. Listen to me.
Yeah, maybe I'm too focused on college funds, and I should be more focused on like setting them up for life funds. Yeah. Because that's the thing. Like, if I put money in a particular college fund, like, you can only spend on college.
And we always talk around here, it's all about options. Options with your money.
Yeah. All right. That's something to think about. Well, maybe that could have been a whole episode.
Seriously.
Because there's a lot there for sure. But
should we move on?
Cool. Let's move on. All right. What is
investments on the budget ?
This is one of those things where there's a happy path, but then there's, do whatever you want.
I'll just read this whole thing from Evan.
Yeah.
As I said, being a business owner, I know I'm not going to lose my job. The only risk I have is if the business was to take a serious downturn, which obviously is my job to manage, and I would see the warning signs to come. But at that point, revenue would drop. So I take my emergency fund and invest it. I know traditionally you want that in cash, but again, I'm not concerned about unexpected job loss, so I want my money to work for me. Get that. YNAB defaults to encourage you to set up a tracking account for your investments. Yes. But I question that logic and currently have it on the budget account because that money is money. And if I divest my investments, I can cash it out and use it for another purpose. I also enjoy using the earnings to fund my emergency fund account, thus in a way keeping up with inflation without having to fund more money. I want to get your thoughts on investments on a budget versus tracking. To me, I feel like making a tracking account almost breaks the give every dollar a job rule. I have the dollars and now they have a job.
Interesting. Okay. So the happy path. What's the happy path, Ernie? Let's talk about that.
Keep it as a tracking account.
Yeah.
But the thing is, generally when I give that advice, I'm talking about retirement accounts.
Yeah.
Because that's money that, sure, you can access it earlier with a penalty, but the thought is it doesn't get access for a long, long time. So let's not worry about giving jobs to those dollars. Let's just keep an eye on what that balance currently is. But in this case, those dollars are invested in a non-retirement account.
Yeah. I'll have a confession. I do exactly what Ivan does. Like, I feel like I could have written this email.
I think a lot of YNABers do.
Yeah. I don't think it's a big deal. Okay, so I'll tell you what I do, and I think you'll see it's really close to what Ivan does. So I have an emergency fund, prudent reserve is what I call it, right? And I had that in a category, but at one point I was talking to my investment advisor, and he was like, we could put this into an investment account. And I was like nervous about that because I'm like, this is my emergency fund, right? But it's very conservative. It's mostly in bonds, and it's really just the purpose is to keep up with inflation, right? Now, I was like, okay, but I didn't really want to take that off YNAB because I like having that category with the emergency fund hanging out there, right? And actually, since then, I wanted to get from 1 month ahead to 2 months ahead, so I actually used some of that prudent reserve to get 2 months ahead, right? So I have that on budget. And here's the deal. It's quite liquid. I actually asked my advisor, I was like, hey, can I get this money really fast? And he's like, you get it within 12 hours. And I'm like, okay, that's not that big a deal. Like it's really liquid. I can get it out really quick. So because of that, I was like, all right, I can put this on budget and use it. Now I'm not using that money for like takeout on Monday, right? It's mostly just in a category sitting, and then some of it's also I'm using it 2 months out, right? To get 2 months ahead. So, I think it's fine if you know what you're doing. Like, I wouldn't tell a new YNABer to do this because it gets weird and complicated. Yeah. But if you know what you're doing, I think it's okay.
And it gets weird and complicated because that balance fluctuates Monday through Friday, right?
Right.
I mean, like a regular investment account.
Yeah. And mine, because it's so conservatively invested, it doesn't do much. I update it like I don't even have a regular cadence. I just update it when I feel like it. It usually is about like once a quarter or so, and it goes up sometimes it goes up like $30. Sometimes it goes up like $300. Sometimes it goes down like $200, but it all kind of evens out and is a hedge against inflation a little bit there. So, whenever I do it, I just do a balance adjustment, and I categorize that balance adjustment to my prudent reserve category. So it doesn't affect anything else in the budget. It's all just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah. So, if you were to do this, make sure there is some sort of actual buffer in your cash accounts so that you can absorb any losses, the fluctuations with that account.
Don't do this with your rent money.
Yeah.
But if it's an emergency fund, I think specifically it's okay. But yeah, just do what makes you feel good too. Makes you feel secure.
And I wouldn't micromanage that account. Like I wouldn't adjust those balances regularly.
No.
So what did you say?
Don't want to think about
once
it at all.
or twice a month at most?
Once a quarter.
Once a quarter.
Once every like 3 months, I'll do it. But again, I don't really have I know you get in your bubble back at the end of the month and you update all your tracking accounts, right?
Yep, totally do that.
Right. But I just kind of I update my retirement accounts, all my tracking, and also that emergency fund investment account whenever I feel like it. I'm all loosey goosey
Okay.
about it. It's like, it's been 3 months, I'll do it. Why not? So it's pretty chill.
I don't have
But if it's like retirement, yeah, that should definitely be
I don't
tracking.
have any of these type of investment accounts. Mine are all retirement specific, and those are tracking accounts. And like you said, I bubble bath, once a month I update those balances. I do have I bonds on the budget,
Okay.
and
Okay. That's an example of this.
yeah, because I mean they earn interest, and I forget how
Right.
often. I don't know if that's quarterly or what, but I don't even account for that. So I'm
Right.
it's just the
Right.
amount that I initially invested into that bond.
Right. And those are pretty much guaranteed unless like the US government
Yeah.
fails. So
But I think I'm
yeah.
done with I bonds.
You're
Not to
pretty good.
take us off topic.
Well, I think the fun is kind of ended with I bonds, right? Because
the
wasn't
interest
it like,
rates dropped quite a bit.
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
just
yeah. It's like the opposite of inflation, or I don't know about I bonds.
I don't
but that's
know
the whole
either. I
thing,
just
right?
jumped on that bandwagon, and I thought I'd give them a try. But it's just it added complexity that I don't like. And again, for me, I always think like, how would Christy handle this situation? Like if something happened to me, and I'm like, well, this is just one more really complex thing that I wouldn't want her to deal with. So why am I dealing with it? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So to sum up, if it's a retirement account, definitely make it
Definitely.
tracking. Just don't have that on budget. That's gonna mess with you real bad. If it's like a college fund, put it in tracking. It doesn't need to be on budget. But if it's like an emergency fund that you're like investing a little bit just to hedge against inflation, and it's liquid, if it's liquid enough, I think you could put it on budget as long as you know what you're doing and you're not gonna
Yeah,
cause problems. Yeah, I wouldn't do it if I was brand new to YNAB.
All right, Ben, how about we do one more and then we'll do a couple wins and call it an episode?
All right, let's do it. Yeah, I'll read this one. This one's also from Ivan. Is
It
that
is.
the same Ivan as the? Okay. Ivan sent us like an epic email. Thank you, Ivan, by the way, because you gave us some good questions. So Ivan said is asking about simplifying categories. So Ivan wrote, I have been having an inner debate on. I love Ivan. He's like, he's just like me, because I have lots of inner debates and never do anything. So I've been having an inner debate on consolidating some of my discretionary spending accounts. I think he's talking about categories there. I combined groceries and household a while back, which I love to minimize my scrutiny of the Costco bill, right? That's good. I really don't care if I use money for cash, babysitting, or dog food. I just know I want to spend X dollars a month and try the best to keep it under that. However, my budget OCD is making me nervous to collapse the 15 categories or so I have into 2 or 3. That's
Yeah.
that's a big change for sure. I'm thinking on going with my free spend for my wife, and family free spend, and leaving it at that. But wondering if you have seen people do this and the pros and cons. It would certainly simplify the categorization. That being said, my wife wishes I would make up my mind. I so get this. My wife wishes I would make up my mind already and doesn't want to hear me talking about it. Kayla's the same way. She's like, just don't. This is part of why I don't change the budget that much, because Kayla's like, stop messing with it. So funny. Okay, so to sum up, Ivan's talking about taking like 15 categories, like babysitting, dog food, just like random little spending things, and bringing it into like 2 or 3. So what are the pros and cons of that?
Well, we've talked about this before, but remember when Jesse had that experiment? I think he went down to 4 categories.
Right.
And
he for like a year.
These aren't his words, but I interpreted it as a disaster. That was his worst year of YNABing.
Yes, I think it was. He basically stopped budgeting, stopped using YNAB as intended, I think. And I think it was 2020 he did it then too. So it was like a crazy time anyway.
Oh, right.
And yeah, and I remember he did a retrospective, and he's just like, all my account balances are like way down, and I have no idea where it went. It's just like, what happened,
So you lose a lot of granularity.
Yeah. That's true. You don't have visibility into your behavior. But if you don't care to have that visibility on certain things, does it really matter?
Right.
I don't know.
Like for me, recently consolidated household and groceries just all into one groceries.
Yeah. How'd that go?
It's fine. I don't
Yeah?
care. Like I don't care what's the breakdown between groceries and household items.
I'm thinking about that. That might be interesting, but I probably won't change it because, again, Caitlin would freak out because she wouldn't freak out. I would probably freak out more than she does. But yeah, we are pretty tight with the groceries. So I wonder if that would cause problems. I don't know. Maybe.
And there was a season where it really did matter to me. And so
Right.
that's why I had them split out.
Yeah, this is the deal. If you think that a category is adding a category or having more rather than less, if you think that adding that category is going to actually change your behavior in some way, then I think it has value. If it's not going to change your behavior at all, I think you can consolidate. You know, like you're always going to buy dog food the same amount.
Yep.
I don't know if you necessarily need a separate category for that, right? There is another con, like your reporting isn't as granular, so
Yeah.
there may be some questions that you have about your spending, your past spending that you struggle to answer. You know, like it might be hard to figure out how much is this dog costing us. You know what I mean? But there's other ways to do that. You could search by payee. You could find stuff like that out. Some memos would help you there. So I think that's fine. But the huge pro is that it's just so much simpler to keep track. And
So much
I think
simpler.
that's good. You know,
This is
So-
something that I did with a lot of my true expenses that were annual. They had a separate category, and I was like, there's one expense coming out of this category per year.
Mm-hmm.
So I just rolled them all up into an annual bills category.
Yeah, I hate that. Like where it's just like, what's the point of having just one category for this like single expense? I think there are some cases where it's useful, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And-
for like Amazon Prime and like Dropbox like software subscriptions, like it's like come on, like just wrap it up. Like who cares?
And then what I do in the notes section, because I want to make sure I'm saving the right amount of money. So in the notes section, I list out what all those annual bills are and the amount.
That's what I do too.
And so then I can
Exactly.
build a target that's accurate and make sure I'm saving the right amount.
Yeah, and you still have the transaction data. So if
Yep.
you wanted to be like, how much am I spending on X thing, you can look and see. So I think that's fine. I've consolidated all my fixed bills. So if it's a monthly bill and it's always the same amount, I have one category for it. I think I have like 8 or 9 bills in there, right? Because I'm not going to change my internet bill unless I like really, I don't know why I would like focus on like an $8 bill, you know?
Yeah.
Unless like there's something like I really wanted to focus on, right? So because I'm not going to change it, I don't mind separating it out. Now, if it's like a variable bill, like my water bill is all over the dang place, right? I like to keep that separate
Yep,
because
me
I
too.
like to have visibility of that. So yeah, I would say to Ivan, I mean, I don't know, maybe your wife would hate this, Ivan, but
She just wants him to make up his mind.
well, that's the thing. I was gonna say like try it. I mean, like just try it for like 3 months.
Yeah.
See if you hate it, and you can always go
Always go back.
You know, I feel like sometimes when it comes to changing our budget, and I'm speaking to myself here, we feel like it's like this big deal, you know, but it's not a big deal. You can do an
It
experiment and change
isn't.
it later.
That's why I
Yeah.
change it all the time. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think the only reason why I think it matters is if you have a partner who's also looking at it and gets confused. I think that's literally for like single folks. I feel like you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll just do it. But like, I feel like that's like the only thing that's like,
Good point.
it's kind of tricky. But truly it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like you're going to die if you change it. Right.
Yeah.
Again, budgets are made up.
That's right.
You made it up. And it's all pretend, and it's helpful, it's useful, but it's all pretend. So you can do whatever you want. So yeah, I would try it for 3 months, see how you like it, and if you hate it, just go back. That's fine.
Okay, here's another downfall. The new Reflect tab. We have that spending breakdown. That's been
Good
fun to
point.
go into.
Yeah,
And there have been times I'm like, oh, I wish I had more granularity in some of these combined categories.
are we gonna like inadvertently make people's categories way too complex because we have these new reflections in there? Yeah,
No, because at the end of the day, like you said, there are other ways to get that data. So
Totally,
I just have to go another route. I'm liking that new reflect tab. So I find myself in it a lot more than when it was reports.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, it's funny that we like talked about like we never really liked reports, but now that it's reflection, we're like moving that way, and especially with some of the ideas that our product team has, I think I'll spend a lot more time in there, and I wonder how that'll affect the categories.
Well, I like what really gets me going is that percentage of my monthly
that's
spend.
super interesting. Yeah, we've never had that before, and it's a super interesting little metric. It's like, oh yeah, I'm spending. I was shocked to see how little I spend on like discretionary stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's like it goes to show you, it's like you shouldn't sweat the little things so much. I mean, yeah, if you add them together, they matter, but like what really matters are these things where it's like, oh, I'm spending 30% of my income on this.
Yeah.
It's like that's wow. Or maybe not my income, but 30% of my spending is this. Like that's what I need to focus on, right? So yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure. So that's all we got for you today. Let's do some YNAB wins. Yeah,
Let's do it.
Who's all in your mind?
all right. We have a couple long ones for you because we thought, why not? Let's just keep going. So Amy wrote in an email and said this: Hi, budget nerds, fellow budget nerd here. I've recently stumbled across your podcast and have really enjoyed the renewed sense of appreciation and excitement it has given me for YNAB. Oh, I love that. I love to hear that. I have been jotting down notes and ideas of things to ponder and possible adjustments I can make to the budget. We have been using YNAB for over a decade. Wow. Okay. You've been using a long time. While I could go on and on and on and on about the multitude of ways YNAB has impacted our lives for the good and is the reason we are where we are today. Today, I'm sharing our most recent YNAB win. 6 months ago, we found our minivan needed a new transmission. Ooh, okay, that's a big one. It's an older vehicle, but a Toyota is still in great it's still in great condition. Because we had sufficient funds set aside, it wasn't even a question what to do. The $6,000 transmission replacement was a much better option than ditching our trusty family hauler for expensive monthly payments. Fast forward to 2 months ago, we were able to purchase a used third car with cash in anticipation of having another driver in our family. We did our homework and purchased a sensible and reliable vehicle that was in great condition. Last week, we were informed that the new to us car needed, you guessed it, a new transmission. I mean, you can plan and you can try, and it's just this life. The thought of spending another $6,000 on car repairs was a punch to the gut. But because of YNAB, we were able to quickly catch our breath and roll with it. I try not to think about the fact that we have now spent $12,000 of our hard-earned money on our car repairs. But thanks to YNAB, I don't have to. Sometimes life sucks, but YNAB is a financial lifesaver, and I don't know how people survive without it. Keep on keeping on. Yeah, I love that. That's so well said.
Yes.
Like sometimes it just stinks. It's just the worst. But you don't have I mean, nobody wants to spend money that way. Everybody's annoyed by that. That's totally normal. But you don't have like a crisis because you were able to handle it. You have a framework for handling it.
And what stuck out to me is you don't have to keep thinking about it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, we had to pay it, and you move on.
Right. Yeah, you didn't have to finance it and all that. And and it's not just because you had the income to do it. It's also because you had a framework, you had the skills, you had the framework to make decisions that allowed it to happen. Otherwise, you might have just defaulted to, getting a personal loan or maybe not even doing it and making a totally different decision. So
absolutely,
I love that.
All right, my win is from Heather. Heather sent in an email. My win is that I will get a month ahead and pay off my debt in the course of a few days.
Nice.
I've been using YNAB for about a year. Initially, I focused on just saving for the true expenses. I went from scrambling when an electric or gas bill came in to being able to pay it right away.
Wow.
In the last few months, I have committed fully to the YNAB method and got my month ahead category halfway full. Today, I woke up to a delightful surprise. I live in Ireland and got a tax refund that was far more than I was hoping for. I am now full month ahead, and I have my credit card debt paydown category halfway full. I get paid on Friday and know I will have the spare cash to fill the rest of my debt category. My debt is not huge, about 3,000. What is that currency?
It's euros, I think.
Okay. About 3,000 euros. But until now, I've struggled to get off the credit card float. Saving for true expenses and not throwing all my spare cash at debt every month really made a difference to how I manage my money. I love seeing the age and money counter go up and find it super motivating. You are both so pleasant to listen to. Oh, thank you. And really appreciate your calm approach to budgeting. Thank you so much for your advice, which has helped me to develop my financial priorities. I'm sure it will also help me to roll with the punches in a responsible way. Fantastic, Heather. Congratulations. And I love where those windfalls can actually be windfalls.
Yeah, that's what
do I want to do with this?
So much. Yeah, you can actually like use it for something you want instead of cleaning up a bunch of messes that were struggling with you. You know, I saw you said you used to scramble every time an electric or a gas bill came in. Now you just pay it right away. I mean, that's huge. And then being able to use a big windfall for things that you want instead of having to scramble.
Yep.
I mean,
paying off debt, getting off that credit card float.
Yeah, just more and more stability, more and more security, more and more of you in the world, right? Love to see it.
Love it.
Thanks for that, Heather.
Well, if you have a win, you can share it with us in the comments of the YouTube video. Otherwise, email us directly, budgetnerds@ynab.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been fun. We'll probably do another one of these, I don't know, maybe in a few months. We always like to change it up sometimes. So this was fun.
Absolutely.
All right.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.